The Lloyd Family of Enborne and Beyond, by Tessa Lock. On the chancel wall of St Michael and All Angels, Enborne, is a plaque to the memory of a former rector with a rather unusual Christian name. Noyes Lloyd had been born in Essex and baptised at Epping on the 6th of September 1719. He seems to have taken the traditional route to the priesthood for the time, having graduated with a BA from St John's College, Oxford in 1742, before being ordained into the priesthood by the Bishop of London at Whitehall on the 9th of June 1745. However, Lloyd's vocation was to take him out of the city and into rural Wiltshire. By 1751, Noyes had become vicar of Bishopstone, as well as rector of the next-door parish of Hinton Parver, near Swindon. The position of parish priest has never been a lucrative one, and this may be why the Reverend Lloyd did not marry until 1763, when he was 43. His bride, 10 years her husband's junior, however, may well have been used to a more affluent lifestyle than the vicarage could offer, since she was Martha Craven, the daughter of the Honourable Charles Craven of Hampstead Marshall, and his wife Elizabeth, Lady Craven. Martha's father had been the first governor of South Carolina in what is now the US. Martha's mother is reputed to have been something of a socialite and a very difficult person, with little time for Martha or her sisters, Mary and Jane. Consequently, Mary left home to make a very unhappy marriage with a horse dealer, whilst Martha worked for a time as a seamstress at a school, using a false name to hide her identity before marrying Noyes. Martha Craven and Noyes Lloyd were married by licence at Bishopstone on the 2nd of June 1763. I do not know why the marriage was by licence rather than banns. There may have been a very simple reason, although I wonder if Martha's difficult relationship with her mother might have caused the couple to arrange their marriage at a short notice, thereby requiring a licence rather than banns. We will probably never know. In the same year that Martha married Noyes, her sister Jane married Reverend Thomas Fowle of Kintbury. Martha and Noyes began their married life at Bishopstone, where 4 children were born to them. The first child, also Martha, was baptised there on the 16th of November 1765, to be followed by Elizabeth on June the 15th, 1767, Charles on December 21st, 1768, and Mary on May 20th, 1771. The Reverend Lloyd's relationship with what is now our benefice seems to have begun in 1764, when he became domestic chaplain to William Craven, 5th Baron Craven of Hampstead Marshall. Baron Craven was, of course, a relative of Martha Lloyd. These were the days when who you knew, rather than what you knew, could make a really big difference to your life. In 1771, Noyes Lloyd became rector of Enborne, whilst retaining his position at the other parishes, even though they were over 30 miles apart. This was not an unusual situation for the time, when it was quite common for a curate to undertake all the duties of the absent priest. Eventually, the Lloyd family moved to Enborne, where Martha would be much closer to her sister Jane at Kintbury. Their mother, however, was by now also living in Kintbury, at Barton Court, with her second husband, Gemmet Raymond. We can only wonder what Elizabeth Raymond's relationship with her daughters was like by this time. Sadly, there was an outbreak of smallpox in the Enborne area in 1775, and, whilst his sisters survived, Charles Lloyd, then only 6, died. He was buried in the churchyard on the 13th of April that year. Martha's mother, meanwhile, had died in 1771. As if to demonstrate the wealth and status of the Raymond family, an elaborate marble memorial was commissioned from the renowned sculptor Peter Schiermakers to be placed next to the altar in Kintbury Church. A letter written by Martha Lloyd to his brother-in-law, Reverend Thomas Fowle, regarding arrangements with Scheermakers is still in the church's possession. You might have seen Elizabeth Raymond, formerly Lady Craven, in Kintbury Church. If you happen to be standing in a pew near the front and to the left-hand side of the aisle, possibly singing a favourite hymn, and casually turn your head to the left, there, in her current position in the north transept, will be Elizabeth, stonily staring back at you, as if in disapproval of something, you know not what. Noyes remained as rector of Enborne until his death on February 3rd, 1789. The previous year, his daughter Elizabeth had married her cousin from Kintbury. Fuller Craven Fowle, although Martha and Mary were still living at home. There was a need to vacate the Enborne rectory, but, fortunately for Reverend Lloyd's widow and her daughters, a friend of the Fowles offered them his parsonage at Deane. The move to Deane proved to be quite significant for Martha Lloyd, in particular as she became a close friend of the vicar's daughter, later living with her sister and their mother in Bath. Martha's friend was creative and lively, with a keen, if sometimes wicked, sense of humour. She loved walking, wrote long, detailed letters whenever she was away from her family and friends, and, in particular, would entertain them all by reading to them the stories she had spent hours writing. In this way, Martha Lloyd, formerly of Enborne, became one of the first people to read what have become some of the best-loved novels in the English language. Martha's close friend was none other than Jane Austen. In 1797, the link between the Lloyds and the Austens became even stronger when Mary Lloyd became the second wife of Jane Austen's widowed brother, James. When Jane Austen, along with her mother and sister Cassandra, moved back to their native Hampshire, Martha went with them to share the cottage in Chawton, now the Jane Austen's House Museum. It says something of the position of women in the early 19th century that Martha Lloyd, granddaughter of Lady Craven, with her elaborate and expensive monument in Kintbury Church, had no home of her own except the one she shared with her friends. However, life had another surprise in store for the young woman from Enborne. After Jane Austen's death in 1817, Martha continued to live in the cottage at Chawton with Cassandra Austen. However, on the 24th of July, 1828, she became Sir Francis Austen's second wife, and therefore Lady Austen. Today, the name of Martha Lloyd is well known to Jane Austen fans all over the world. A facsimile of her household book, containing the recipes for dishes she cooked at Chawton, has been published, and earlier this year saw the publication of Jane Austen's Best Friend, The Life and Influence of Martha Lloyd, by Zoe Whedon. So, while Janeites, as fans of Jane Austen are known, all over the world think of Martha Lloyd as Jane Austen's best friend, I will always think of her as the young woman from Enborne.